kind of the last couple of years has been for us has been a time of traveling, living off the income. Really haven't tried to grow as much. It's been more about kind of turning the wealth we had already built into cash flow and lower risk. And so we've paid off debt. We've increased our cash flow. We've sold properties that were kind of a hassle. And now we're just
making connections, meeting people, putting yourself out there a little bit outside your comfort zone is where you learn. And
with the nuts and bolts of just the tactics in the present moment. It's a tricky balance, because, you do want to think about where you want to be. And I want to be financially independent and financial freedom. But I would say probably 5% of your focus should be on that, maybe less. And 95% of the focus should be just using the big picture just as a guide, like a compass. The 95% is you figuring out today what you can do to move forward today. And
the habits, the more hours you put into something, the better you get. And the better you get, the more rewarding it is. So just taking those little actions and doing the little things you need to do to be that person, have that career or whatever your success areas that you choose.
Welcome, millionaires and future millionaires. You're listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast, a show where you'll hear the stories and interviews of everyday millionaires. We'll unveil their decisions, their strategies, and their portfolio allocation. Now to your host, Jace Mattinson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Millionaires Unveiled podcast. This is episode number 335. Stace, how's it going? Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas. It's been a good day today. So I hope everyone had happy holidays and stayed safe and had a great time.
Yeah, our Christmas gets a little more exciting every year as the kids get a little bit older and can participate and are more into it, I guess, so to speak. And yeah, it's been good. I guess this is probably one of the first ones we've had with just our family here in the last little bit. It was nice and relaxing and good. So hope everybody had a great Christmas out there. And New Year's is just around the corner. So super excited for that as well. And getting into the new year, 2024, putting 2023 here, last week of the year in the rearview mirror pretty quickly. A few housekeeping things. If you'd like to be on the show, send us an email, millionairesunveiled@gmail.com. Got 2024 schedule open in Q1, Q2. Love to get some more interviewees on the schedule. Also, if you haven't left us a review, please do so. Helps us continue to grow the show and reach new millionaire interviewees. Should probably get to 1,000 this year. We'll see. We're in the low 800s, or I guess next year. We're in the low 800s right now on iTunes anyway. So we'll see if we can get to 1,000. It'll be pretty remarkable. Today's episode has a returning guest. This is with Coach Carson. Net worth over $5 million. Today's episode, though, features him and his wife, which is pretty unique. We haven't had too many husband and wife couples on. Have a few more in the pipeline. In fact, actually, we just did an episode not too long ago that'll release here in probably next little bit here with a whole family. So that one's going to be exciting. But yeah, husband and wife, we get to dive a little bit into their story. So we had Coach Carson way back in the early days, I guess the early days of the podcast, episode number 49. And we got into his real estate journey. And today, he came back on the podcast with his wife. Net worth over $5 million. About 90% of it's in real estate. A little bit in the market. And is living a great life full of freedom. In fact, they've taken some of that newfound freedom recently and went and lived in Spain. And before that, lived in Ecuador, which we get into all the details surrounding that and why they decided to do that and what their real estate portfolio, which I guess they're just shy of 100 units now. And he does have a partner, which he mentions in that. But yes, great episode with them. So without any further delay, let's get in the episode with Chad and Carrie. Guys, today we have Chad and Carrie. In fact, Chad is returning. You might know him as Coach Carson. Chad and Carrie, how's it going?
We're doing well.
Doing well.
Thanks for having us. This is great.
Yeah. So Chad, or should we call you Coach Carson? Because I know that's kind of really your name everywhere else.
Either way is good. Yeah.
In the last couple of years, give us kind of an update. How much has the net worth grown? Asset allocation? What's changed? What's going on with you?
Yeah. Well, in the net worth department, this has been a good challenge challenge to come on the show because I was like, I don't even know. Like, what is it? So I hadn't updated in about a year, and it was just north of about 5 million, best I could tell. I mentioned to you in the email, some of the real estate is just until you sell the thing, you don't
no
know.
idea.
You know, have a good guess, but I've been pleasantly surprised. We're in Clemson, South Carolina. Some of the properties have gone up pretty well. It's a college town where the university's been growing, and so some of the properties not only are the values on the income, some of it's redevelopment type values. So I don't know 100%, but we're good there. And the kind of last couple of years has been a time of traveling, living off the income. Really haven't tried to grow as much. It's been more about kind of turning the wealth we had already built into cash flow and lower risk. And so we've paid off debt. We've increased our cash flow. We've sold properties that were kind of a hassle. And now we're just, we spent a year in Spain, which we're happy to talk about, just with our kids, and they went to school there. And so that was a big part of our focus, and less on the net worth and the wealth and all of that, which was kind of the point for us early on.
Nice. So I want to get into a little bit more of the details about selling properties off and kind of optimizing, which it sounds like has been really the main focus. But how many doors does this put you up to now?
I have a business partner, by the way. So when I say we, he and I own our business 50-50. So we have 99 units in that business. And then out of that, some of those are multifamily properties. So we have some 12 unit, 4 units, things like that. So we have 33 properties total, and that's 99 units.
Wow. And most of these are pretty close to where you live?
Yeah, so we're in Clemson, South Carolina, and our kind of goal was to get close to the university, because it's kind of a weird town. It's 15,000 people who live in the town, and the university has 25,000 students. So it's like the university is like the dominant part of the landscape. And so a lot of ours are student rentals. And so we try to be on the bus line, try to be walkable to campus if we can, or walkable to the downtown area. And then we have a mix though. Some of ours are apartments for students, and we try to get like the grad students and the older students who are a little bit more mature, paying their own way, aren't throwing as many parties, that kind of thing. And we like 1 bedroom and studio, and maybe a 2 bedroom instead of a really big, many people think about college rentals and like Animal House and big house, and there's 10 people living in the college rental. Not at all. That's not our deal. We like the older properties that we can fix up, find a mature, responsible college student, which there are plenty of those. And then we also have some houses.
Nice. Congrats, y'all. And Carrie, how has this journey been?
It's been interesting.
From your side,
when I first met Chad,
kind of this real estate portfolio get built over the last few years.
And when we left,
in a yoga class.
And when we would leave going the same direction. So I didn't know, I had never spoken with him, but his car said, "We buy houses" on it. So, he must drive his boss's car. What is this car? And I'd never talked to him. And then as we started dating, I was like, oh, this is your car, and you did this to your car. And so to see the process has been amazing. The year that we got married, or we got engaged, how many properties did you buy that year, Chad?
Yeah, I think that was the busiest year we ever had, 2007, and we had 33 closings that year. So it's kind of part of our story. We went way too fast, accelerated it in a bad timing too, 2007, right before the Great Recession. So we didn't predict anything very well, I'll tell you that much. Yeah, in 2007, it wasn't exactly great timing either. We had bought a lot of properties, 33 properties in 1 year. And so we just grew a lot. But part of our story was that wasn't such a smart thing. Part of that experience, the risk of it, the hassle of it, the amount of time we were spending on it kind of reminded me and my business partner, like, why are we doing this in the first place? Like, we're growing and scaling and 10Xing and kind of doing what everybody else told us we're supposed to do. Like, you go to a class or read a book, everybody says you're supposed to go small to medium to big. That's what you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to do it faster. Well, that at about the same time, I was reading books like The 4-Hour Work Week and a personal finance book called Your Money or Your Life, which were talking about like finding these places called enough, like when you have enough, or when you're growing fast enough, and that your life is actually the point, not the business itself. So we really kind of reset a little bit after 2007. First, we had to survive, and then we reset and started focusing more on, like, these are the things we want to do. We want to travel. We want to, we wanted to have kids and have a family. We wanted to be present with them. We had all these life things that we wanted to do. Some of them required money, but most of them actually just required a lot of time and flexibility. So we started thinking about a simpler, smaller version of a real estate business that still satisfied all the financial needs, but wasn't quite so intense. It wasn't quite so big. And that was sort of the pivot that we made then. That it took a while kind of evolve to that. But Carrie was there throughout all of that from the very beginning, and the ups and the downs. And yeah, we bought a couple properties together as well.
Awesome. So this journey really started almost, 15, 20 years ago at this point?
Yeah, 21 years. So
Wow.
I was 23, and Carrie just moved into Clemson to be a Spanish teacher. I don't know if you want to tell that part of the story, but no.
I was a Spanish teacher. I had my career. I hadn't planned on meeting anyone, and had my way I was doing things. And then we met, and she had changed the way I thought about money completely, because I was, I didn't spend a lot. I was frugal, and I studied a lot of Latin American history. So I saw the negative side of capitalism. And I learned that Chad was a capitalist. I didn't know if that was going to work. And then I learned about social capitalism, how you can be responsible. And so it's changed my perspective on things, and see money as a tool now, and can be used for good.
And vice versa. I think that conversation back and forth between us was about money and capitalism and real estate investing. There's a lot of people screwing people over, there's a lot of that. So how do you have business that actually tries to be a net positive in addition to making money? That's always been important to us. And I personally think that the best business owners add a lot of value, and there's always bad apples, but I think we add value to society, and to the extent that you build wealth is how much value you added to other people. And that's the beautiful part about it.
Yeah, I love that. So that bumper sticker got you then, Carrie, huh?
Boy, I sure did.
That's how she remembered my phone number. I didn't have to give it to her on a piece of paper. It's just look on the side of my car.
Yep.
That's awesome. That's
Some of his
awesome.
friends said, "You actually drive in that car?" That gets us where we need to go. I don't know. It's kind of funny. People are always looking at us when I'm in it, but yeah.
I used to do deals sitting at a stoplight. Somebody would call me "Is that you in the car? I need to sell my house." And I was like, "Yeah, where are you?" And it'd be somebody 3 cars behind me or across the way, and all right, just pull into the McDonald's right there. I'm happy to talk, see what we can do. And I bought at least a house or two per year off that $200 vinyl obnoxious sign on the side of my car, but it worked. It was a nice marketing tool.
And it got you a great
also
wife.
counts as a write-off, right?
Oh yeah. It was 100% write-off, and I went down, my social depreciation was pretty bad. I was lucky to get a date, and she worked through that, but the wealth was good.
No, it's awesome to see. And I guess we had you on kind of in the early days, and have seen this portfolio scale over the years. So at this point, you're just about 100 doors, some of it with a partner, and you're basically living the financial freedom lifestyle that you probably wanted to design when you first started this journey. Tell us about the transition to taking a year and moving to Spain. Why did you kind of do that, and what was the plan there?
I think I'll let Carrie talk about the why, and then I can talk about some of the how and the details. Why do we do that? Why do we go to Spain?
Well, we like to mix it up. Back in 2017, we went to Ecuador for a year and a half. And so when we first met, one of the things we connected over was travel and spending time abroad. And I was a Spanish teacher. And so I like Latin cultures, and we wanted our girls to become fluent in Spanish. And so they were 3 and 5 when we went to Ecuador. We dropped them in the deep end, and they learned Spanish, and they swam, and they loved it. And so when we came back after a year and a half, they proceeded to forget their Spanish pretty rapidly, unfortunately. But then we knew we wanted to go abroad again. At that point, we were thinking 4 to 6 years. We weren't sure exactly. And so COVID happened. We hadn't even thought about going abroad at that point. But then we were looking at our daughter. She was starting 6th grade, and looking at with high school coming up, middle school, high school, we didn't know when it was going to be possible to get away. So, and Chad also had whisperings and thoughts about thinking about writing a book. I thought, we'll be going abroad again very soon. He doesn't realize the time he went with that, but he needed to get away to have a little extra bandwidth to write the book. And I was very happy to go away with our kids, because I love the experience of living in another country as a family.
Yeah, and there's a lot of logistics that go with that. It's kind of fun. Parts of it were not fun, but just the visas, just getting a visa in Ecuador was a little bit simpler, although that was more difficult. It was difficult. You had to get a college degree, show you have a college degree. Essentially, countries often want to show that you're not trying to take a job from the country where you're going. So you either have to show you have enough financial means, or show you have a good professional background, that you can work at a high skilled job. So that whole process was always interesting. Carrie did at the very end, she had a stack of paperwork 2 inches thick that we had to take we had to mail to the embassy in Miami, right?
Yeah, it wasn't even it didn't fit in an envelope. It was a box, and it was a full-time job for at least a month or 2 to gather all the documents to make the copies. It sounds kind of ridiculous. It doesn't seem like it should have taken that long, but it did. It was a process, but it was worth it.
Yeah, and then there's other details that are kind of fun. Our kids are going to go to school there, and some people homeschool when they're going abroad. If you're traveling a lot from place to place, place. We did more for us. It was just stay in one place in Granada, Spain. And we went to a local public school. And so we found somebody on the ground there, kind of a consultant who would help us go talk to the local principal and help us find a rental property, because we didn't even travel there before we moved. We're just like, all right, we're just gonna like hope this works out, and rented a house, found a school to go to. We had been to Granada before and kind of knew the neighborhood we wanted to be in. But yeah, all those details are kind of fun. We like all that preparation, the process, and you have to start pretty early, 12 months or so, 9 months, just to make sure you get all the details. But for us, that's kind of part of the fun part of travel too, that you think about it, you look at maps, you wonder what it's going to be like, and then that anticipation turns into the actual experience. And for us, it was being there and kind of immersing yourself in the culture. Our kids were going to school every day. We met a lot of parents there in the local public school. And then I like to find sports to kind of as an outlet. Carrie does more. She took classes and she was teaching English to people and just kind of one-on-one. And then I took I found a soccer group. I don't play much soccer. I hadn't played soccer since high school, but Spain love their football. And so I would play pickup soccer and basketball. They were my two things. And so I made a lot of friends that way. So yeah, it's kind of like plopping our life from the US and kind of putting it down in Spain, and then doing a lot of things we normally do, but in a totally different culture and place.
What an incredible experience, and so valuable for your kids and your family as a whole. Chad, do you also speak Spanish then?
Sí, hablo español ahora.
Did you know Spanish before meeting Carrie, or this is something as a family you worked on together?
Well, the first time we met, I told him I was a Spanish teacher, and he said, "Oh, I'd like to learn Spanish."
It was my pickup line. It was kind of corny, but
he really did, and he'd taken classes before that. But when we were dating, we spent when was that?
Another trip, 2009. Yeah,
we'd spent time abroad before we got married, and then soon after we got married, we spent 2 months traveling around, and he took Spanish lessons. His Spanish got great, really, really good. And then
that's the cool thing. When you go abroad, I mean, you can immerse yourself in some kind of learning activity. For me, it was languages. And so we were in Peru in 2009. Before kids, when you have a lot more bandwidth and focus, and I went to Spanish classes every single day for 4 hours for a month. And if you do something for a month every single day, you can learn it really quickly. And so I came back. Carrie is a Spanish teacher. She's like, "You're using the subjunctive and the past subjunctive, all these kind of crazy tenses." And it's like, I don't think I do those anymore, but that was my best at that point. I've kind of deteriorated since then. But that's part of the fun part too. When you can speak the local language, then you can really connect with people and ask more questions. And like the soccer, learn all the real words in Spanish, all the cuss words as well when you're playing football or soccer. And then, but yeah, the language part was kind of a fun part for all of us.
What would you say were some of your most valuable lessons you learned together as a family in your time abroad?
That's a difficult question. That's a great question. There's a couple of things. One would be kind of trust the process. We knew we'd done the things that we needed to do. And then just for us as a family, once we had a routine, it helped a lot to get everyone doing what, have their own activities. So that was helpful as a family to have routines, things we learned as a family. I think it was just a lot of learning. We loved to go places and explore, and making connections, meeting people, putting yourself out there a little bit outside your comfort zone is where you learn. And sometimes when we're here at home, it's hard to put yourselves in situations that you really get outside your comfort zone. So it's a big, stretching, growing experience, sometimes not easy, but usually worth it in the end. And so I'd say that was one. The girls really, really enjoyed the trip. They had hard times, but at the end, as we were thinking about staying, we weren't sure if we were always planning on coming back after a year, but there were many families that were staying for a second year. So for a long time, we asked the girls, okay, on the scale of 0 to 10, 10 is you want to stay. What's your stay and go scale? And they said, well, we're a 5 that we want to go back to the States. I don't know if I explained that scale right. So they were ready to go back to the States. And then it was 6. And then by the last week, they're like, it's a 9. We want to stay. And so they really appreciated the connections that they formed, the friends there. And their Spanish had always also gotten to the place that they could really communicate and make friends. And that was part of the patience and the process, like I started to talk about, is that it takes time to develop relationships. You can't just drop in and expect it to be wonderful. So you kind of have to go through the ups and downs. And it's, I guess, a little tiny lens into what life is, right? So it's an intense experience. You see the intensity, the growing phase. And by the end, we all loved it and had fond memories.
Yeah, I think a lot as a parent about character development. It's kind of a hard thing where you have to how can you teach them to fail, for example? And this was a kind of a safe environment where they can go somewhere. You're having to learn another language. You're having to meet new people. It's awkward, but that's life too, right? Those skills can translate to all sorts of things when you go to college, when you go to a real job, or whatever you choose to do. So I think for me, seeing them grow in that respect and being able to help them through those little, let them fail, let them fall on their face a little bit, but then help them get back up. And all right, you got this, you can do it. That was probably the best, as a parent, the coolest part of the whole process.
What was the transition like coming back to the States? And do you think you'll do this again?
We were worried about the transition back. One of the things when we went to Ecuador, we actually got depressed coming back because it's just the location, the type of lifestyle we were in. We were in an urban area in both Ecuador and Spain, walkable. And I'm big on walkability. We both are, on being able to walk to the grocery store, walk to the kids to school. Coming back to the U.S., one of the frustrations we have is just the whole infrastructure is built only around cars. Like, I like driving a car, but if you want to walk to the park, you almost get run over by a truck trying to push your kids in a stroller. Like when that happened to us when we had kids that young. So that's been part of the hard transition, just being in the car all the time. It's kind of stupid, but that's one for me.
People are out in public. You go from your house to your car, in your garage. You go to where you're going, you walk to where you're going. So there's not in between spaces where you run into people in the streets. And so that was one of the things. And a little bit more spontaneity, the nature of being an expat in other countries. A lot of people are working online, so have a more flexible schedule, or even people that work full time, you just run into them in the street. So there's not the spontaneous meetups with friends here in the States. So that's kind of a reverse culture shock coming back. It's hard to have to schedule to get together with your best friend 2 weeks out. It's a
very American thing to do, though. But we love the nature, the nature aspect of it. We live in Clemson, South Carolina. It's a small town surrounded by forests, waterfalls. So it's outdoor people. We're really eating that up and getting on our bikes and, drop the kids off at school and go ride our bikes together. That's been really amazing.
That's great. So at this point, you are 100% in real estate, or what? Is there anything else in terms of your asset allocation?
Yeah, we're very heavy real estate. I'd say 85% real estate. And I'll talk a little bit about how being concentrated so much that can have its own risk. And so part of what we have done over the last 7-8 years is reducing the debt on our real estate portfolio. So, we thought a lot about diversification, and we do have about 10% in stocks, mainly in our retirement accounts. So those are kind of just a completely backup plan. All right, the real estate doesn't work out. We concentrated in real estate a lot because we wanted to retire early. We wanted to live off of this income. And I still work and we still do things, but we wanted to be able to live off our income earlier in life. And to me, real estate, the income component of real estate, the fact that you can use it to build wealth, you can use leverage to get started without a lot of capital. And then as you grow, one of the transition points we made was, all right, we have enough wealth, we have enough net worth here, but this is a transition a lot of people as investors don't make. They just keep growing forevermore, keep the goalposts keep moving. Instead, we started looking at it saying, all right, we have $100,000 saved up here. Why not use that to pay off some debt instead of buying 4 new properties or 2 new properties? And that was accomplished a couple of things that were interesting. One, it increased our income because, for example, we had a $100,000 loan that had $1,000 payment, and we'd had that loan for 10 years. And because it had amortized a lot, by us paying that loan off, we freed up $12,000 per year. So it's essentially kind of like a 12% cash on cash return. And you're also reducing your risk. So although even if it's a long-term loan, if things get really bad, and rents dropped and you had some other calamity, which could happen, black swan events, having lower or no debt just made us more resilient, even though we were concentrated in real estate. So that's been a big focus of ours, is getting the loan to value of our portfolio from what it was originally, 70% of our value of our properties, down to 10, 15% now. So, a lot of our properties are free and clear. Some have debt. But so don't necessarily want to be 100% debt free, but we are at a much more safe, resilient place real estate wise. And then the stocks, and then a lot of cash too, just some cash on the sidelines as well, are kind of how we round it off.
Are you still contributing to your retirement accounts?
Yeah. We every year we don't have we thought about doing a solo 401k. We could probably put even more in there, but we just do the typical traditional IRA for each of us. We also like an HSA. So whenever we have the high deductible savings or health insurance plan, which is the negative is, it's like $13,000 deductible every year for the family, $6,500 per person. But then we can set aside money. I think last year was $7,500 or so into your HSA, and we don't use that money. We just set the money aside, let it grow, just like we have it in both real estate and stocks. We have a self-directed HSA account. So that money is growing almost like a really cool Roth IRA or something like that, because you can take the money out to use it for health insurance costs or health costs anytime. So we'll just let that grow. And then if we don't use it for health costs in the future, you can take it out just like a traditional IRA and pay taxes on it. So those are the two main vehicles, the IRA and the HSA.
It's great. I'd love to talk a little bit about your book that you wrote. Or are you still working on it? Is it out?
It's out. Yeah. It's I guess we're not on the video here, but yeah, came out in July, and it's called The Small and Mighty Real Estate Investor. And that's part of what Carrie was saying. I spent about 6 months when we were in Spain writing that just every morning for about an hour. And sometimes getting away allows you to focus and think about it. And it kind of goes back to my story. The motivation, the reason I had the itch to write it was that I'd seen got a little frustrated, honestly, by a lot of the real estate information out there, education online about, it's almost assumed that everybody should grow, be big. And more so that successful investors are the ones who are the biggest. And I have no problem with people going big. I'm glad people do that and it serves society. But I think most real estate investors, at least the ones I know, are okay with just having 5 properties, 10 properties, 20 properties, because they just want to get to the minimum number they need to have the lifestyle they want. And then they want the lifestyle. They want the freedom. They want the flexibility. And so I wanted to write a book that kind of gave a different perspective on how to be successful as a real estate investor, both with the philosophy of it, so the small and mighty philosophy, and then also what do the tactics look like? How do you negotiate for that? What does the financing look like? Ultimately, how do you pay the debt off if that's what you want to do? So that was sort of the itch that I had to kind of share that with people and try to give a different perspective.
You mentioned you're still working some now. What does work life look like for you at this point?
Yeah, as a combination of Carrie can give her answer as well. For me, it's a combination of non-paid work, like nonprofit work. I have a nonprofit that Carrie and I are both involved in, and some local friends. Going back to the walkability issue, we were really frustrated in 2014 by that fact that we live in a small town that is completely built around not being able to walk anywhere. And so I asked the local planner and the kind of city council people, is anybody working on this? Is like something happening with this? And they're like, not really. No, nobody's working on it. So as an entrepreneur, I'm like, all right, this is something that's important to me. And so we started raising money. We started getting a plan from the county, donated some money to hire some engineers and planners to put a plan together to build like a 30-mile network of walking and biking trails in our community in Clemson. That was the start. We were optimistic, but it's taken a while, and we've raised several $1 million now from different sources, grants, private donations. The city has put in a lot of money. The university's put in some money. And so just this year, like while we were in Spain, they started building the first 3.5 mile segment of that network. And we have a lot of momentum now. And so I spend time kind of like the spark plug for the organization, just talking to people, raising awareness, posting on social media. And so that's like a 10 to 15 hour per week.
Depending on the week.
Yeah, depending on the week type job. But it's a passion project. And then I also do Coach Carson stuff. So writing the book, doing a podcast. I really feel like called to be a teacher and be an educator. So I enjoy that, making my podcast, making videos, doing little tutorials on YouTube, showing people how to run the numbers on real estate. That's between that and those two things are most of my time. Real estate's about 2 hours per week. This is kind of where it's settled into now, because we have property managers and systems and processes. So that was part of our evolution, was by going abroad and living in Spain, we had to get systematized and processes, and we had to get a team of people doing that for us. So that's been the side effect, is now that we have a lot of time to do other stuff. And Carrie has her own stuff that she does.
I'm not that involved with real estate. I've been to many real estate conferences in my life, but it's been a long time. But most of my stuff is language teaching. I teach Spanish. I haven't taught Spanish in a while, actually, but I teach more English for speakers of other languages. So I do that for fun. And so it doesn't make money like real estate, that's for sure. It's pretty much volunteer work, but it's enjoyable.
We both, have been involved in our community too. Like Carrie's on the board for the local city, has a kind of recreational department board that helps advise the city council on things. So we find issues that we're passionate about and important to us, and we're like, all right, let's get involved in those. And sometimes you get over involved and then you kind of have to pull back, but that's part of the fun evolution now.
Well, what you've really done is bought yourself time back by setting yourself up in this way. So you're able to use your time how you'd like, and these causes that mean a lot to you while still making a great income. So at this point, you're not purchasing any more real estate. Is that right?
We are. It's just much at a slower pace. Like, for example, in June, we had a property that was right next door to another rental property we had. And I've talked to the owner for years. He called and said he's selling it. And I said, I would love this location. Let's buy that property. And we didn't get like a home run of a deal on it, but I've kind of learned over time with real estate that there's two aspects of a good deal. There's the quality of the location and the property itself, which is going to lead to long-term growth of that property and the ease of renting it. And then there's the numbers. Like, so we've had deals where we bought them 60 cents on the dollar, 50 cents on the dollar, spectacular numbers today, but they were not in a great location or the property had problems. So you could flip it and make some money, but it wasn't as good of a long-term asset. And this kind of fit into that great long-term asset. It fit exactly what we're looking for. Brick house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, crawl space, walkable to the elementary school, good location, big backyard, fenced in. So it just checked a lot of those boxes of like what we're looking for from a property. And then the numbers, I think we did buy it at $200,000 and it's probably a $250,000 house. So we got it at a discount, but we have to put probably $15,000, $20,000 into it. So, not a good deal, right? And today, a lot of people are still having trouble finding good deals. So that we're buying here and there, 1 or 2 properties per year. We're also doing some investing with other entrepreneurs, like some other real estate entrepreneurs who, like we have one partner who is in Montana, and he and his wife bought a little 8-unit multi-unit property that's like a boutique hotel basically, and it's in a good location near downtown Kalispell, Montana. And they did a conversion or upgraded it to be like a really nice boutique hotel. And so we invested with them, but they're the operators. We're not doing any of the day-to-day stuff. They get paid to do that active management, and we're the money kind of behind the scenes. So I think that's what we're interested in, doing a little bit more of that and kind of diversifying our geography a little bit, just with people we know and people we've already met and trusted for years. And that's more it's almost like a venture capital for real estate, kind of behind the scenes.
Wow, amazing. I love how you're able to be picky now, in a good way, right? You're not reaching for deals. If it's a great deal and something you're excited about, then it's something you can go for, but you don't have to go for it. So last question before we move into a little bit of rapid fire, what are you doing to teach your children about wealth, and do you have any accounts set up for them?
Well, we just generally have questions and conversations. I think one of the things I learned growing up, both my parents were entrepreneurs in a way. My mom had her own dental practice, so she had to start that practice when I was really little. And my dad was a CPA, but he then started his own business. He had a computer business, and then he had a real estate business. So there's always just conversations about money and not like holding that back. So for example, we were at the kitchen table, and our younger daughter was just asking like, how much does that cost? And how much does that cost? And I feel like that's a good sign. Like, she's not afraid to ask about those things. How much did that cost to go to she asked, how much does it cost to go to the doctor, for example? We're like, well, we have to pay 100% of that. And we pay this, I think this case was $100 that we just paid out of pocket. She's like, that's a lot of money. I can't believe that cost $100. And she's like, I don't know that we need to do that. I was like, well, no, Carrie's like, that's a good investment because that's your health. And we think that we're okay spending that much money. But then she also sees we're at the store and she wants like a $10 plastic thing. And we're like, no, like that doesn't really, how is that going to help our life? How is that going to make it better? You already have a lot of plastic things in your room. And so I think those just conversations have been one thing. But
she's also asking too about how much our activities cost and how much are we paying for these. And so I think she's valuing it more. For me, I grew up in a different kind of household. Money wasn't talked about at all. And, but I always had enough. I grew up in a wonderful house. I never lacked for anything. I had what I wanted, but we never talked about money ever. And so it was a shift, especially with the real estate world. People talk about money all the time. How much did you make on this? And how much? So it was a shift to start talking about money all the time. But with our girls, they're very mindful of it. So I like that we're able to have those conversations with them. And our oldest is an entrepreneur. She's always trying to think of ways to make money and have a job. So
we definitely fan that flame. And the other thing that I've really enjoyed is playing money games with them. To me, there's positives and negatives on the rich dad, poor dad kind of stuff, but the rich dad game is fantastic from a real estate investing standpoint, and just learning the principles are very realistic. So we've played that game, the cash flow game is what it's called. And so as you go through people haven't heard of it, when you go, you have to get out of the rat race. So you're in this 9 to 5 kind of rat race, and the goal, you have to keep a ledger. You basically everybody has this account balance sheet and income statement. And so you have the little sharpened pencil, and you got to write down and you get at the beginning of the game, you just like life, you draw all right, I'm a janitor, I'm a doctor, or I'm a teacher, and each one has its sets of income and expenses. Like doctors often have these really big expenses and all these things. And if you have kids, you got to pay more money for the kids. And so you go through all this rat race, but the way you win that is by buying certain kinds of assets and understanding what assets look like, and how when you buy stocks, they can go up in value a lot, and then you can use that growth to reinvest in something else. And real estate, houses don't make a lot of cash flow, but they go up in wealth as well. And then multi-unit properties produce more cash flow. So it's all these little pieces that our kids play, because people love games and kids like games. And now they kind of get it. Like our kids are like, oh, one of these days we want to buy a duplex. Will you help us buy a duplex? I'm like, I'd be happy to. That's music to my ears. Of course I would. So that game kind of got them getting it more than just like an adult concept. They're like, oh, that's something that I could do to help me. And we try to emphasize and have a conversation about like, they're very artistic and creative. Like you can follow your passion. Like that's wonderful. Please do that. That's how you're going to contribute and find fulfillment in life. At the same time, you might need to do these other things on the side to actually make money because artists aren't always rewarded. Teachers aren't always rewarded like they should be. So just having this conversation about money as a tool, understanding it, you can do a little bit here on the side, whether you have a side gig, you're a freelancer, or you have some skills you can trade money for, or whether you invest in real estate, like those things are going to allow you to do those things that are really important to you. And they've sort of seen that directly with us traveling. And we'll talk about the money, like, hey, we're in Spain here because we made these investments, and we're able to spend time with you and pick you up at school because of these investments. So I think it's become more tangible for them because they've been experiencing it while we're talking about it.
Right. That sounds like a very cool game. I think we'll need to get that when our kids get a little bit older.
I recommend it. Yeah, that's great.
So far, any games that we get, they just lose all the pieces. I don't know where they are. I find them in a bucket later and I throw them away.
Yeah, I think
I look forward to not losing.
10 years old, 9 or 10 years old is probably a good starting point for that.
Longer attention span too.
Yeah.
So
It takes a while to play this game for sure.
you got a while.
Actually, do you give your kids an allowance?
For a while, we had a system set up that there's certain things that they have to do. No, we've never done it. We've gone through phases, and if they do certain jobs, there's certain jobs they have to do at home. They have to clean the bathroom. That's what they do. But then there's things, if they go above and beyond, we would pay them for those things. We've kind of gotten out of the habit with Spain and with their school schedule, their activity schedule. They're so busy. So I every once in a while we'll be fine, and all of a sudden I can hit a point that like, I'm not doing this anymore. I need your help. And so every once in a while I get to a point like, okay, you all have to start doing your share. And so then we kind of back up and say, okay, so try to come up with a plan for them to help. And then certain things that are harder work that they'll get rewarded for, they get paid for. But we haven't done an allowance.
We've not been consistent with it. Like I think kind of like a game, we've used it for a year or two at a time. And it for example, we use these little envelope system, kind of like the Dave Ramsey system. And when we paid them $10 or $20 for their help, they had to put in, or we encouraged them to put in like a third of it for giving, like where do you want to give this money away? A third of it for saving for the future, some big object they wanted or some big thing they wanted. And then a third, they just got to blow it and spend it. Like, great, like go do something with it. So that was, to me, I think really stuck with them of like, part of your money is to spend, but the rest of it has to do other stuff. And there's a cycle here, and there's giving, and there's also saving and just delayed gratification. So they've forgotten about some of the saving money they had, and they just realized it when we got back from Spain. They're like, we have $30 in the long-term savings account. Like, yep, you do. And so they're planning to buy some furniture or something. I don't know what they're going to do with it.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. I'm always curious what other parents what systems they have in place. And I feel like it's usually a constant recalibration. You don't usually select one thing and keep with it forever, but we're always trying to keep kids interested in being motivated.
Yeah, it's hard.
Well, it is. Well, let's go ahead. We'll wrap up with a couple of rapid fire questions. And I'm sure you did rapid fire your first time around, didn't you?
I think we did. Yes, if I remember right, I love rapid fire, and between the two of us, we'll figure out how to respond.
I wasn't here for the first one, so I don't know what you've answered and what you haven't. So I'm just going to throw a couple out there, and so we'll see what Jace comes up with if he takes anything out. If you already answer, it'd be a different answer now anyway. So
yes.
All right. What is the most fun you've had with money?
For me, it's travel. I mean, we could go into all the details of the stories we talked about. Carrie, what about you?
I would say the same thing. This last year has been from 2019 was just, I wouldn't talk about 2019 wasn't not the year I was thinking of it all. It was not 2019. It was this last year when we spent in Spain the whole year. The months building up to it, we took a 4-week road trip out west before we left for a year. And so we got to see some amazing things and go beautiful places and have wonderful experiences as a family. So definitely travel.
Experiences. I think that's the thing. We just bought a car recently because we had to. The old car just broke down, and people get fun experiences from cars too. So I get that. It's just not our fun. Whereas traveling and doing that with our family, those memories, and we're going through the pictures now and telling stories to people like that. It's like the gift that keeps on giving because you keep on recycling that in your mind and the stories and the pictures.
What's worth spending the money on, and
what's worth spending the money on? I mean, to me, health is worth spending the money on. We're kind of in that kick right now where I'm going to a physical therapist because I have plantar fasciitis from walking all the time in Spain, and I'm going to the doctor. I think those kind of things have just reminded me like our health is number one wealth. That's the thing that you need kind of as a baseline to do any of these other stuff that you want. And where nobody's guaranteed a certain length of life, but if we can be healthy and have a well-being, to me, that's just a no-brainer, including food and the type of food you eat and eating good nutrition.
And experiences as well. Things that we can do as a family and remember having special times together with family and with friends. We had at the end of our trip, there was a concert for a musician that our girls really love. And it was after weeks of travel when my family came to visit. And so there was this one concert and I thought, it would be amazing. And so we spent the money on it, we splurged, and it was a really, really fun experience as a family.
And just ignoring the fact that we spent money on another ticket, we're like, that we're just going to buy another ticket. Like to be able to say that and do that and not worry about it. And like the return on investment is our life. This is fun. Let's experience it. So we've been frugal before. We've done that. We are frugal on other things. Like for us, it's cars. We're living in the same house we've been in since 2012. We're slowly upgrading things here and there, but it's not like we're not trying to, as we need it, as is comfortable. Our furniture, a lot of it's still used. Like, hey, works for us. That's cool. But not afraid to splurge on travel, experiences, health, those things. We'll spend all we need.
What's the most expensive piece of clothing that you've purchased or accessory?
Man. Carrie, what do you think?
I don't know.
Carrie just bought a backpack. That's not it. Is that count as clothing? I don't know.
That was a big investment for me. A backpacking backpack. Mine was 20 years old and had been eaten through by a Zorro, a fox, and wasn't ready to be replaced. That was a big investment. Clothing, shoes. We replace running shoes a lot, so shoes are a big investment.
Yeah, hiking shoes are not always cheap, but I found that with like running shoes, I'll just buy the $50 ones on sale. I don't really care. She doesn't. She buys nicer ones, but hiking shoes, I feel like they have a good sole. They last longer. Many of them have a good return policy. So I've spent $150, $200 on hiking shoes without a problem. I know that's the big scheme of things. Accessories, that's probably not that much, but I don't know. For us, I asked my daughters are kind of more into style and fashion, and I'm not. And they're like, here's my style. This is what I look like. And I'm like, well, what is your dad's style? They're like, you wear t-shirts and you wear outdoor camping stuff. Like, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's probably not where we started. Yes.
All right. What's a closely held belief that you've changed your mind on?
I think early in my career, people might have heard like the hustle culture. I came from sports. I played football in college. I think hustle is important where you just work hard. And I think that's a kind of a foundational principle of anything that you do that you're successful in, whether you're in academics or whether you're in sports or whether you're in business, your career, your family. But at the same time, I think I've changed my opinion on that in that it's like, yes, work hard and take some really good breaks. And I almost look at like when you're climbing a mountain, if you just hustled all the way to the top of the mountain, you'd probably die. Like if you're climbing Mount Everest, you've got to take these breaks. You got to like go down and up and down and up and stay at a plateau. And so for me, like some of this has been like forced learning, like Carrie saying, let's take this trip and let's get out of town. And like, I'll just give a quick story. I was hustling from 2003, 4 when I started my real estate business until 2007 and then 8 and 9 during the recession. That was stressful. And Carrie and I went on this 4-month trip to Spain and South America that we talked about earlier, where I learned to speak Spanish. It took me 6 weeks to really relax. And it was like we were sitting on this little bench in Cadaqués, Spain, on this beautiful coast. We spent like 3 or 4 hours out there reading, and Carrie took a nap, saw this beautiful like shooting star. And it was like right about that moment, I felt this knot in my chest, like untie. And it's like release. I'm like, what was that? Like, that's crazy. And I think that was the hustle. Like that was just there's an anxiety and there's a tension that comes with growth and pushing and hustle. And that's that makes you successful in some ways because you're pushing it. But at the same time, it can kill you sometimes. If like midlife, people have heart attacks a lot of times. And also it can hurt the other parts of your life that you ignore and you trample over in the meantime. So I think just having a nuanced view of hustle has been a big belief shift for me. I wouldn't say I still believe in hard work, but I think it's yes, and you need to balance that with some relaxation and some thoughtfulness.
Love that. All right, last one. What's the craziest thing you've done to earn money?
Oh man. While Carrie's thinking about that, early in my career with our real estate, it was tight. Like if you didn't get a property rented in 60 days, we don't have enough cash like to withstand this thing very long. And my business partner and I would jokingly say, like, what stage of like urgency is this thing in? Is it like we need to like get extra ads out there to try to get it rented? Or is it like the gorilla suit stage? And what he meant by gorilla suit was like we'd seen some of the people out there like in a gorilla suit, like with signs saying, go, come buy this gold jewelry or whatever. And so like we were like, so I did not ever get in the gorilla suit, but I had a property that we couldn't rent or we were trying to sell. And like I got out there on the corner, like downtown in this area with a sign to saying like open house. Like me physically out there, my business partner at the house. I've made cookies for the, at the open house. Like, so like if things are tight if this come back to like, what are you willing to do to get this, to make this thing happen? And for us, it was like the gorilla suit was always the metaphor. Like, hey, if we got to pull out a gorilla suit, like that's fine. That's one reason I put the We Buy Houses stickers on my car. I went to a conference and somebody said, are you too embarrassed to be successful with your business? Are you too embarrassed because the fact is, if you spend $200 on that, you'll buy houses that make you $10,000, $20,000, $100,000 for $200 return. So really your embarrassment is getting in the way of you being a successful investor when you're in like this critical growth stage of your business. And I was like, all right, get out of my own way, swallow my pride, do what I got to do. And I feel like that was a symbol for me. It was like, I'm all in. Like I am all in on this business. I don't care what it takes. Embarrassment aside, like let's do this.
Fantastic. Final piece of advice for someone who's just starting out.
I feel like I'm hogging the conversation with Carrie, but I would just say you have to mix the big picture vision with the nuts and bolts of just the tactics in the present moment. It's a tricky balance, because you do want to think about where you want to be, and I want to be financially independent and financial freedom. But I would say probably 5% of your focus should be on that, maybe less. And 95% of the focus should be just using the big picture just as a guide, like a compass. The 95% is you figuring out today what you can do to move forward today. And like I like to make a list and just say, here's one thing I could do today that'll move me forward in my investing. Maybe it's setting up an account. Maybe it's moving some money to my retirement account. Maybe it's calling 3 people who might lend me money on my real estate. Like that's where the rubber meets the road, those tactics. And that's it. You combine hundreds and thousands of those little, progress points, they turn into that long-term thing. But that's something as a new owner, entrepreneur, investor, you can kind of get overwhelmed and wrapped up in the big picture and lose sight of you just got to move forward a little bit by a little bit by a little bit and have some patience. That takes a lot of patience to be able to do that. But I would also add, you have to have fun with it. If you're in some wealth building vehicle, some career that you're not having fun with, like what's the point? Like what's the point? This is your life in the first place, but also what's the point? Because you're not going to sustain it. If you're not enjoying it, like joy is like this gift we have that allows us to learn and allows us to put our enthusiasm into things. And if we're just kind of half-heartedly doing something, we're not serving the people we're supposed to be serving. We're not serving ourselves. We're not serving our family. So find a balance between something you really enjoy, something you're good at that also adds value to other people. And then you'll sustain that. You'll actually stick with it.
But joy takes a while to get there. You can't just go if you like it and you don't, because you've got to do those little, I'm listening to Atomic Habits right now, but there's the little things that you have to do, those actions that you have to take every day. And they said the number one thing for success isn't, it's really who can get past the boredom of doing the same things over and over again. Yeah. And so the habits, the more hours you put into something, the better you get. And the better you get, the more rewarding it is. So just taking those little actions and doing the little things you need to do to be that person, have that career or whatever your success area is that you choose.
I think if I could say 2 words that have jumped out at me or would maybe sum up a lot of what you guys have built for yourselves is I'm hearing longevity and I'm hearing livability, right? It's building the wealth so you can live the life that you want for a very long time. And that's very admirable and you must be very happy with the life that that you're able to live now.
You said it very well. Thank you for summarizing it that way. But yeah, well, I think we pinch ourselves sometimes. I know things change and things can go, but I feel like we've had some luck, but we've also had some things we've done well and done right. And so hopefully, my hope is that by people listening to this, hopefully there'll be some tips and some ideas that will really resonate with other people, and they'll help you if you're early in your journey. Like, it is a grind a little bit early on, but in the big picture, I'm always amazed that whether you use real estate or something else, a 10 to 15 year period of hustle and focus, and it can accomplish a lot. Like, there are people who go in their 70s and 80s who have very little wealth built. That's the average. That's the norm. So if us, people listening to this, they're in 10 to 15 years, you can accomplish a ton, even if you're starting from zero. I find that to be incredible that we're in a place in the world and in a time that can happen. So I'm optimistic. I gotta leave people with that.
Thank you so much. Well, Chad and Carrie, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. We enjoyed it.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks for listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast with Jace Mattinson. For more stories, investment opportunities, and information, check out our website, millionairesunveiled.com. See you next time when you'll hear from another everyday millionaire.